Okay, now episode number. We are just discussing this. We believe it's episode 48.
Yes. If somebody thinks it's something different, please tell us. But we're pretty sure at this moment. We weren't really sure before, but
That's all right.
yeah,
So I've got a few things to talk about.
yeah.
So I'm in Japan at the moment.
Mhm.
Back in Tokyo after having gone to, we've been here for about a week and a half at the moment. Obviously arrived in Tokyo, went down to Hiroshima, and went to Peace Park, saw the Atomic Dome and the museum. We spent a few days there, and we're back in Tokyo now, and another couple of days, and going home to Australia.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you hear about people in Japan being, polite and very helpful. I didn't really understand what they meant until I got here. It's really quite extraordinary.
Mhm.
You sort of, you're there and people sort of sense the idea that you're not sure which way to go. And some just walks up, oh, what would, what's the problem? Can I help you? And just point you in the right direction. And so I'll help you with the machine on in the subway in Tokyo, whatever. It's great. So
Yeah.
really, really lovely. Yeah.
Mhm. I wonder if
Yeah.
they're just especially nice to foreigners, though.
I mean, I suppose that's always possible.
Yeah.
For what I understand, I mean, you know more than
Right.
for what
Yeah.
I understand, it is part of the culture. But that's
Hmm.
yeah. Um, I don't think I've ever felt safer anywhere, quite frankly. Yeah, I mean, Australia's a very safe country too, but I think it's even safer here in Japan. It's really. People walking the streets at all hours of the night. I mean, obviously here in Tokyo and also in Hiroshima, we went out late, and yeah, just um, men and women walking around. Everyone feels safe, and it's great.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of panic happens more in the minds of people and in social media and so forth. So
exactly.
it's very possible that things that feminists and the adjacent people who think they're feminists, but they're really just kind of uh, purely misguided. People, I think they just kind of worry too much, or even
Yeah.
just fantasize that it must be true, so they have something to rant about. Or
That's right. And you often hear about women saying how fearful they are in the West. And we know that this is sort of this women as victim that's pushed on everyone. It seems to me, looking as an outsider, that it hasn't arrived here and that both men and women are walking around feeling quite safe, as indeed in general they would be in Western countries as well.
Mhm.
But yes, I think it hasn't really sort of found its way here, which I think is fantastic. And yeah, so anyway, it's interesting to watch people going about their business at all hour of the day and night and not having that sort of that fear.
Yeah,
And also too, dogs with flashing collars. That's another thing I've
yeah,
noticed.
hmm yeah. It sounds about right.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of sort of cute apparel. I mean, you pick that up I guess, from seeing Japanese culture from other countries. But when you come here, I think you see just how much it is. We've got shirts and billboards, and shops and stores and so forth. There's cute stuff everywhere. It's quite
Right.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
quite
I
a,
take it you've been mostly confined to the metropolitan areas.
Yes, two. So we were, as I said, we went to obviously Tokyo's what 43 million or something like that.
Mhm.
Hiroshima is smaller, I think about 1 million or something like that. But
Mhm.
yes, we have largely, apart from traveling between them on the bullet train, we're
Mhm.
largely confined to metropolitan areas. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe next time try the more less populous areas and see
Yeah,
how
get out of the
different it is.
city.
Yeah.
We,
Hmm.
we'd
Yeah.
we'd like to actually. Yes.
Yeah.
You think we'd find a bit of a difference there in terms of
Sort of. I mean, I'm not saying that people will be less polite necessarily, but it's I almost said less busy, but that's not true either. I mean, people try and keep busy their own way, of course, but it's just, it's not the culture just seems kind of different between city versus uh, otherwise.
country. And I guess that's true in general. So that's certainly true in Australia and Canada
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, that's right. Where you do have a different, perhaps even a more traditional culture, perhaps in the countryside as well. Mm.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
And a little bit more conservative at times too.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, is it
yeah.
snowing over there?
Not where, no, we haven't seen any snow. No.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So we passed Mount Fuji, and it was
Mhm.
snowing obviously at the top of Mount Fuji, but
Oh
other
yeah.
than that, haven't
Mhm.
seen any snow on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The place we used to live right before we moved here. There was a nice view of the mountain, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but on a winter day, it's one of the best things you can see outside your
Yeah.
porch. So yeah.
Yeah, I was really, I mean, I actually want to walk up it. And if I come here in the summer, which I plan to do in the future, my intention is to walk up Mount Fuji. And
Mhm.
if you're shocked at that, I'll just respond and say that I'm a person who's spent a lot of time sort of, I don't climb hill mountains or whatever, but I do walk up mountains a lot
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's
so forth. So I'm used to the idea of walking up mountains. So it's not unrealistic for me to consider walking up Mount Fuji. Obviously, I'm going to train for it though and keep up,
hmm
and increase
yeah,
my aerobic fitness before I do it. But unfortunately, at the moment, it's not possible because of the season, which I would have loved to have done at this time. That would have been
yeah.
fantastic.
hmm
But it's some future point. I will definitely be doing it.
hmm Awesome.
So I was going to say that, interestingly enough, yeah, in Hiroshima, there are obviously a lot less tourists. There are obviously a fair number of tourists, but not as many as you would find in Tokyo, and a lot less people who speak English too. And we got by. We've been doing all right.
hmm
But yes, there are. I guess it's yeah. Certainly, we're finding more here. More here. Not a
hmm
huge number, I suppose, but probably more people who can speak English. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm assuming it's more of a young adult kind of a thing, like not children per se, but also
Yeah.
not really very old people.
And people who are in sort of in jobs where they're likely to interact with Westerners or
hmm
foreigners. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. For example, and this brings me to something else I didn't know until before I got here. So today we actually got a cashback on some tax because Japan actually has a system where foreigners, so people who are non-resident, can get tax back on certain items. So
hmm
basically, you pay the. Sometimes it's done at the shop, and
hmm
sometimes you have to go to a different, sort of like as a government office, and they do it. But yeah, it's currently I believe anything over 5,000 yen, but less than 50,000 yen, and you can actually get the 10% consumption tax back, which is quite nice. Mm.
Got it. Nice.
Mm. So yeah, so I was just thinking the person who was working in that shop today and helping doing the tax refund obviously spoke English very well because she'd be
Mhm.
interacting with people constantly
Right.
from outside Japan.
Mhm.
So yes, we've enjoyed it. I was going to say about Mount Fuji, it really is impressive to see. Even just passing it in the bullet train,
Oh yeah.
I was actually genuinely surprised and shocked at what it looked like.
Mhm.
It really does stand out. Yeah,
Yes,
against
it
the other
does.
mountains. Yes, against the other
Mhm.
mountains. Yeah,
Yep.
and the bullet train was great. About 4 hour trip down to Hiroshima, and yeah, very smooth, very straightforward.
Mhm.
Bullet trains, fast trains are better than planes any day of the week. Much more relaxed environment, much easier to deal with from beginning to end.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's absolutely fair. Yeah.
yep. And
I'm
Australia's
assuming there's no DEI on those bullet trains.
no, none that I saw, which is really good.
Yeah.
So, my impression is, and you see your thoughts. My impression is Japan has not really bought into that.
Not so much that I can tell anyway.
Yeah.
Especially not in those types of industries. Yeah.
And now that we're seeing it failing in the West and Western companies pulling back,
hmm
hopefully that would mean that countries like Japan and other countries like South Korea and so forth will see the folly of the West and not make the same mistake.
Right, yeah. But I hope they understand it so they don't recreate it on their own. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Not that I'm really expecting that to happen, but they need to understand why it's failing.
Yeah, my suspicion is other societies looking on are a bit shocked at what the West did and have quietly decided they're not going to go down that road.
Mhm. Right.
Yes, I mean we know the South Koreans have 4B and so forth, and but I mean I don't think that's that big of a movement in South Korea, and I think it's going to just I think it's going to it'll burn itself out in the West. It won't be
What does it
successful.
stand for? Four bitches? What?
Yeah, right. I do have it actually. I do actually have it written down.
Okay.
If I have to go to, I think I have it written down here on Wiki for men.
Yep.
No dating, no heterosexual sexual relationships, no heterosexual marriage, no childbirth, which of course all start with B in Korean.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the four. Now, briefly, in the West, or primarily in the US, they were giving it another name, I think 4N for four nose, but that only lasted a few days actually, and they seem to have grabbed 4B. But it'll fail because just like all the other sex strikes have failed. So it'll be big news and hit the media and so forth and be a big deal, and then it'll burn itself out
Well,
within a
here's
few
the
weeks.
thing, though. Do we really want it to fail, though? I think if some of these women are doing this whole 4B thing, shouldn't we know about that and be kind of thankful that we're avoiding them?
They remove themselves from the gene pool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm,
So, but yes, aside from what we might prefer, I think it's going to fail actually. So, I mean,
okay.
on Wiki for Man, I've got a long list of sex strikes that have failed. I mean, there was one in a South American town where they declared victory after the sex strike, and if you look, there was another sex strike a few years later, and the reason given was the first one didn't work.
Hmm.
So obviously they declared victory a little bit too soon. No word on whether the second one worked or not, but I would bet real money that it did not because they
Hmm.
never do. There was one in Africa, and the founder of the organization that promoted the sex strike actually later admitted that the sex strike didn't really do anything, except it did cause the Western media to take an interest. So it drew media attention, and she said that was the primary, sort of benefit of having called the sex strike. Sex strike itself didn't actually do anything. But I postulate, and I get that sex strikes will draw the Western media's attention, but I postulate that as we're getting them more and more, gradually the interest will wane because it will just be something. It'll just be sort of it'll end up being background noise. And if you look at Wiki for Men, I have quite a long list of them there, and it's very clear that they're becoming more common.
Hmm. Yep.
So yeah, so I think even that advantage of them that was being used in that to draw media attention will also burn itself out.
Right.
So yeah, generally having a great time, delicious food.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What have you tried? What have you tried?
Well, okay. So I'm probably could be considered reasonably adventurous with food in general. I have tried a lot of Japanese food before. I haven't tried raw fish before I got here.
Hmm.
I have had it a couple of times. Personally, it's not really for me, but
Hmm.
I was quite happy to have it and try it. But it's not really my favorite. But it was really nice. It was really interesting to try it.
Right.
Had obviously, oh gosh.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of in the cities. There are a lot of convenience stores.
Hmm. Yep.
Family Mart,
Yes.
Lawson, 7-Eleven.
Lawson.
Right.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, I think there's some figure about, one convenience store per, number of residents of Tokyo, and it's quite a low number, I think. So
Yeah. Right.
anyway, they have very cheap meals available too, and a wide variety of sort of meals. So we've had quite a
Hmm.
few quick
Yeah.
meals from there. And yeah, just I guess I've tried things that I wouldn't normally have, like udon and so forth. I wouldn't ordinarily have as well. Also, ordinarily, I stick to a fairly low carb diet. I don't do that when I'm traveling because I find it's not practical.
Yeah.
But I've been doing a lot of walking, somewhere between 4 and 10
Yeah.
kilometers a day, and I think that counters the fact that I'm having more carbs than usual. It's probably good that I am having some more carbs than usual.
Hmm.
So
Oh yeah. Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Family Mart is near and dear to my heart. So.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
They've got an amazing variety. I said five. Well, five. So $1 Australian is approximately 100 yen. So all I have to do is knock off the two last zeros, and then I've got it in Australian dollars. So yeah, they were talking about 500 yen for a meal, which is about $5 Australian. Typically, maybe some of the fancier ones up to about six, which is, from my perspective, very, very cheap. And a amazing wide variety of things. Yeah, in available. So why is that? Just I guess growing up, that was a sort of a mainstay, somewhere you could go to get all sorts of things.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Quite a variety of things. Yeah.
Yep. So there've been a few surprises for me. One is that there are a lot of vending machines, which I kind of
Mm.
knew about. I knew that, but
Yeah.
there's probably more of them than I expected. They're everywhere on the streets, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing food vending machines so much. I'm seeing drinks vending machines everywhere. I'd heard there were a
Yeah.
lot of food vending machines, but I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I'm not running into them. So, but because I want to try Odin, actually, I haven't had a chance to try Odin yet.
Yeah. Odin is pretty it's street food as you can get, I suppose. And yeah, we used to have it every so often at home. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's
Odin.
probably the one time I actually like radishes. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of being, I think it'll have to be my mission for the next couple of days. I'm going to try to find somewhere that's got Odin because I really would like to try it here.
right, yeah.
The reason is because I was watching an anime and they mentioned Odin. I became quite intrigued by it. Yes.
Right.
Same thing happened when I went to Germany, actually. I watched a movie set in Germany and or partly set in Germany, and they had currywurst in the guy had
Mhm.
currywurst in the movie. And I made it my mission to have currywurst when I went to
Got it.
Germany, and I
Sure.
succeeded. Yes. So
Well, this might be a good time for for Oden because it's considered a winter food. So, it's one of
nice.
the one of the toastier kind of things to have. So,
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I had sort of gathered that might be the case. Or
mhm.
something that yeah, you had to warm yourself up. Wonderful.
Mhm.
One of the things I liked about I love the way the bullet trains work with the booking and so forth. One of the nice things about it is that, and I don't know if this was the case before when you were living here, but if you miss your train on the like I'm going, we went on Nozomi, which is I guess
Mhm.
the one of the fastest ones. If you miss your train, there are reserved seating and unreserved seating. If you book online, you get reserved seating automatically. If you miss that train, you can use your ticket as non-reserved seating for the rest of the day, which I think
Mhm.
is really nice. So if you were to miss it, you just line up with it for the unreserved cars and you just yeah use your ticket, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe other people aren't as excited by that as I was, but I'm really impressed with that sort
Well,
of thing. I
sure.
like the
Yeah.
idea of, you haven't lost your money completely. You've got a second opportunity to get on the train.
Yes.
Yeah. Another one that surprised me was the use of paper currency. It's still quite widespread.
Mhm.
Australia's largely gone digital. Australia does tend to lead the way in that sort of, along with a few other countries. I think Estonia is apparently quite digital. Digital currency is almost universally used now in Australia, to the point where they're starting to talk about a paperless society. But my response to that is always show me a network that is 100% reliable, and then I'll say, yeah, let's consider it. But
Oh yeah.
networks obviously aren't. So, but Australia's it's particularly in the last few years with PayWave, there's been a significant jump in the use of digital currencies and not and a reduction in paper currency. But there have been quite a few places I found here which still do want paper currency. So I've got in the habit of carrying, 10,000 yen or whatever, which is about 100
Mhm.
Australian dollars, at least having that in my wallet.
Yeah.
But I've gone to a few other countries where I've encountered that before, so I wasn't completely oh wasn't it wasn't completely unexpected, but it is interesting to see. In many ways, Japan is very advanced economy and got the fast trains and so forth, but and
Mhm.
then it's paper currency still in use. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
from an outside look, from an outsider's perspective, it's a bit of a dichotomy there. Yeah.
Well, that's a testament to efficiency itself if you can balance both of those just as well. Yeah, so.
True, and I will say the machines that take paper, like I put a 10,000 yen note in a machine or something, and it was quite happy to drop the change out for me. So
Yeah.
the machines are ready to take the larger notes. Yeah,
Right. Well, and for people who don't understand the conversion, it's roughly about $100, I think. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's around 100 Australian, so I suppose maybe around 90 US, somewhere around
yeah,
there, maybe.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. So, um, as I said, the exchange rate has been one Australian dollar to 100 yen pretty much since I was a child. So,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
seeing them. Yeah, yeah. Remember seeing them on the gaming consoles when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and they would have one Australian dollar, 100 yen, and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
still there 40 years later. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, it's interesting. So no, we've really had a great time, and yeah, love both cities. Tokyo's big, very very
Hmm.
big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. You still got a little bit more to go, right? Like before you come back.
couple more days.
Hmm.
Two more full days, I think, and then home.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
we're at the end of the trip, but I had to defer last week, but it's probably better because I've been here another week and got a little bit more of a
Hmm.
feel for the place. But it's interesting. Peace Park was quite interesting. I think when I walked into the park, the dome was behind me, and I didn't initially see it.
Yeah.
And we walked down Peace Park, which is designed so the dome is at one end, and you walk past the various memorials and you can see it. And I turned around, and it was quite shocking actually to see there at the end, because obviously the building is largely destroyed, and it is in stark contrast to the rest of the city. So yeah, at that it was quite emotive, I think, when I turned around and actually saw it. Yeah.
Right.
But no, I think the memorial's very well done. The museum is, the information they've got's fabulous on it. So this is, of course, the year of the 80th, or sorry, next year I should say. We're
Yes.
nearly there. Yeah, 2025
Mhm.
will be the 80th anniversary. So
Right. Mhm.
yeah. But yeah, it's interesting anyway. So they talk a lot about it. They've got a number of buildings that they've got in the museum. They've got a number of uh, parts of the buildings that survived the detonation and so forth. So anyway, I do have some other things to talk about. I don't know if you
Yep.
have. All right,
I'm underprepared for this one
that
despite the
that's all
wait.
right.
So yeah.
I've been a little bit on the fly, on the running on going on the fly as well. Been surprisingly busy on this trip, as well as being on vacation. I've also had a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff I've had to do, back in Australia, and so I've been online and dealing with that. And yes, so it's been rather busy. But
Mhm.
and I managed to buy myself some new headphones, so
Mhm.
I'll be using that in all future episodes. And I decided to put the plug the USB port in so that my headphones flash. I think this may be the first time I've ever got flashing headphones. I don't know if you can see that
Nice.
on there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see it. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I may
Very
not do
good.
that. Thank you. I may not do that in future, but for the first go, I plugged in the USB port.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
So for the first time ever, we can see Rob as some kind of gamer guy.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. He'll be
That's
playing
right.
League of Legends soon.
That's right. Yeah, I was amazed when, because I've built PCs and so forth for decades, but I was amazed over the last 10 or 15 years or so when people started to bling their PCs, and I bought a case once that it had a Perspex wall in the side. I'm like, wonder why you do that. And then I found out how people were blinging their PCs and putting lights
Hmm.
inside. And yeah, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't do
yeah.
it. I don't do any of that stuff. I may build a PC, but it would be very, very, very plain.
Right.
Anyway,
Hmm.
uh, in social media, something interesting has happened. Australia has passed legislation. Well, it's all but it's passed in the Senate. It's about to pass the House of Representatives, but this is a foregone conclusion, to ban social media for under 16s, which will be the
Ah.
first country in the world to do this. So I don't know what you think about this, Vernon. I have kind of mixed feelings about it. The From a free speech point of view, I'm immediately worried from a free speech point of view.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I am also concerned that social media, and many people recognize this, is a contributing factor to some of the social problems we're seeing, like woke, for example,
Hmm.
where it's getting a lot of young people, impressionable people in, and they're becoming indoctrinated before they get to 16. So
Hmm.
from that perspective, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there is some validity there. So as I said, I'm quite ambivalent on it actually. Yeah, my first reaction is immediately a free speech red flag. On the other hand, I do recognize that social media has been a component in some of the problems we've seen in the West,
Hmm.
and maybe this may push back against it a little bit. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts on it.
Well, straight off, the free speech problem is the first thing I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah,
But it kind of goes to show that people don't really have a lot of confidence in their own ability, maybe as a parent or so, to kind of
yeah,
guide them up until like say around the 16.
a
So
very good point. Yes.
right, right. And so you know, there's this kind of mentality about, banning this or that, and it's never really well thought out in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
And one thing I have to say about, the effect on people as far as social media goes. Well, I think social media up to this point, people have been using it without really kind of knowing how to navigate it and what the consequences are. And I think that's where most of the problems kind of lie in
Yep.
terms of like a lot of the social problems. And
Mm.
when it comes to something like woke and so forth, I could think of worse, like say universities, as a more worse thing to do. And
Yep.
it's more likely for me to kind of see more anti-woke stuff in social media than I do in a university. So
Good point, actually. Yeah, so it may actually be detrimental in that you're right, a lot of young people are being indoctrinated in universities, and they may be partway along that road,
yeah,
but you're right, you're
right.
absolutely, those are really good points. And also, too, you mentioned, people don't have confidence in themselves as parents. The government, too,
Hmm.
doesn't seem to have
Yeah.
confidence. No, I think you're making some very good
They
points
don't
there,
have
actually.
confidence in parents, they don't have confidence in kids, and they don't have confidence in the people in general,
Yes.
the populace. So
And another problem that may arise too that has me concerned is what is the definition of social media that is going to
mhm.
be used? And I haven't seen that talked about in any of the discussions. I'm not sure if the legislation, draft legislation, is online or available, but as soon as I can have a look at it, I'm going to because I'll probably leave it to the government to separately define it.
Yeah,
But I'm quite concerned about what the definition of social media will be.
it's kind of absurd to define it in modern terms because what was really social media before? I mean, before it was letter exchanging,
Yep.
newspapers,
Yep.
television,
Well, that's a good point, actually.
messenger pigeon. Huh?
I was thinking about the early internet, but right, you've even
Yeah.
gone further back. So uh, now, first of all, is YouTube social media? If it is, I mean, YouTube is full of educational material. If you're going to ban it for under 16s, you've got a problem there, right?
Mhm.
But further than that, there's Usenet, which most people wouldn't have heard of actually, but it's actually a an online chat system that's existed since the early
Mhm.
1980s. I think
Oh
82 or
yeah,
something along
right.
those lines. Uh, it's possible that Usenet is covered by the definition of social media.
So this is funny because I promise this is relevant.
Hmm.
But so one of my hobbies is digging through very old forgotten TV shows, right? And one of the recent things there was this 18 episode series called Whiz Kids, if you've heard of it.
It vaguely rings a bell.
Yeah, right, right. It only lasted for like 18 episodes, and but
Yeah.
it's about teenage like hackers in like the late 70s, early 90s kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But they were using communication across what seemed like an internet. So they're
Yes.
using really archaic technology. It's like
Mm.
um
Well,
and
that's
so
right.
forth. But yeah,
Before the internet was common, there were BBSs, and people did
hmm
communicate. There were
yeah,
BBSs that had multiple phone lines, and people did
hmm
communicate in real time. Absolutely, that's right. And if not, or if Usenet is, could mailing lists also be counted? Because,
hmm
and this of course raises an interesting point that if you include Usenet and mailing lists and BBSs, then social media has been around for generations.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I am with bated breath looking forward to the definition of social media. So no, I think you've
Yeah.
made some really good points there actually. And yeah, I think and the fact that anti-woke material won't be available to the
Yeah.
under 16s either, depending on how
Well,
social
yeah.
media is defined.
In fact, do we know that that's not the motive behind the censoring?
I think it's broader than that. It is being
Mm,
brought in by the Labour government, who's the centre left party, and they
uh,
have been quite woke. So it
yeah.
would be interesting to, yeah, it's. I don't think it would be the target, although it might be
Okay.
maybe being caught in the net though. They may have. I think it'd be a broader
Mm,
net, I suspect.
yeah.
Uh, but no, that's a good point too.
Hmm. Yep.
So there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is too, I want to mention, interestingly enough, there are no penalties for children or their parents. All of the onus is being put on the ISPs to
Mm,
enforce this.
I
Yep, and the
see.
comp and the co- and the social media companies themselves. So to
Mm,
enforce this,
cool.
and yes, it'll probably be very difficult to enforce, and probably not very effective, regardless of what we think of it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this pans out, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It won't begin before the end of 2025 anyway. But anyway, Lydia Thorpe. I mentioned Lydia Thorpe before with regards to
Yeah.
her actions with regard to the King of Australia. I mean, I'm an avowed Australian Republican
Yeah.
and want to see Australia become a republic. But as I said, until that day, he is the king. So I'd quite happily vote again, vote for it to become a republic. But yeah, but Lydia Thorpe has now found herself suspended from the Senate. She apparently threw papers at another senator, Senator Pauline Hanson, and I think I get the impression that Lydia Thorpe is really disliked by both sides of politics at this point,
Mm.
and they were quite happy to have an opportunity to get rid of her. But it's a bit of a paper tiger. They suspended her on the last sitting day before Christmas, which means that in effect there weren't going to be any further days in Parliament anyway. So really, she's not missing any time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or not
That's
not very much.
mhm.
Yeah, but notably, Pauline Hanson, the woman who Lydia Thorpe threw the paper at,
Mhm.
is one of the few Australian senators to have raised men's issues.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Senator Hanson. She actually presented at an event some time ago, a few years ago, and I and another member of Men's Rights Australia got an opportunity to have a chat with Pauline for about 5 minutes,
Mm.
Senator Hanson for about 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and talk to her about her organisation and so forth. So she's aware of us. And yeah, I don't agree with everything Senator Hanson says, but she has legitimately raised men's
Mm.
issues on many, many occasions in the Senate. One of
Mm.
only a few senators who ever do so.
Mm.
Yeah. The only one I've got left is Zoe McClellan, who I was
Yep.
mentioned at the end. Have you got anything else to mention?
No, we'll save it for the next one. Yeah, I think we needed a break, and you obviously needed the vacation. You seem to be enjoying yourself, so yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Mm,
I think I needed a break.
yeah, and I had a pretty hectic couple weeks too, so I needed a break. And we came up with a pretty decent episode today, even if it was short. So I'm
Yeah.
satisfied with it. Yeah, so
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, I shall
mhm.
mention Zoe McClellan
Do
as
it.
I always do.
Yes.
As of December 2024, a warrant is outstanding for the arrest of Zoe McClellan in relation to charges of kidnapping, child stealing, and child custody deprivation. McClellan was reportedly residing in an apartment in River Ridge, Louisiana in April 2021 and may still be residing in the area. McClellan grew up in the area of Port Orchard, Washington State, and may have returned to that area. Some sources believe that McClellan has left the United States and is residing in Canada or Costa Rica. Prior to disappearing, McClellan was known to use the alias Sarah Chandler. Anyone with any relevant information should contact the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Thank you. Well, shall we meet again in 2 weeks?
2 weeks sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All
Talk to
right.
you then.
Talk to you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.